This Valentine's Day, I decided not to focus on any of that mushy stuff like love. I decided to focus on the thing that everybody really loves about Valentine's Day, sweets. And to hit that point home, I have the perfect game for us to discuss today. Because today, on Joker Reviews, we're going to be discussing deadly desserts. So Deadly Desserts is a fairly simple game that's going to play very similar to any other trick-taking game you've ever played before. It's all based around the principle of trying to get these deadly dessert cards into your opponent's hand. How do you do that? Well, to show you how to do that, I'm going to kind of start a game in progress here, and I'm going to show you the different steps that you would take to get to the point of getting these deadly desserts into your opponent's hand. So in this three-player game, at the moment, we see that the player on the right has played the first card. They played the first card and is the Portobello Quiche Bishop, a card that I really like, and they have set the Craving, which is now the color of card that everybody else has to play if they are able to. So they played that down. We already put this one out, but now this is the card that the next player played because they needed to play a green card and they played the Pizza Peno Phoenix. So they played that down, and now I'll take a look at my hand. So in this case, I have one green card left. And it's good that I can get that out of my hand now, because if I play it out of my hand now, the next time somebody plays green, I will be able to free play, and that will allow me to play the cards that I actually want to get into my opponent's hands. So in this case, the highest value card, which is this one, gets to take the trick. So these all go into the victory pile of that player. Now, this player, since they took the trick, gets to play, and they play another green card. Now the other player, they look through their hand, and they have another green card, so they played that as well. I actually I want to show you some of the art here. This is kind of the toast goddess here, avocado, and this one's like a little bunch of wizards here playing the pomegranate kale riders. And now I look at my hand, and since I do not have a green, I can pick what I play. So in this case, I'm like, you know what? I'll give him the Hangry Pig. It's one of the specialty cards. They call them superfoods, and I'm going to play that now. And since it is not part of the Craving, it automatically loses. I cannot win this trick by playing one that's not the Craving, meaning that that card is definitely not going to end up in my victory pile and costing me points at the end of the game. So in this case, again, this player takes it with their 15, the highest that you could play, and they go into the victory pile here. So play will continue like that until you get through your hand. So once we've gone through 3 more plays, we would get through the rest of it. And then you total up all of the negative points and some of the potential healing, like cards like this, the Asparagus, who can actually give you healing with superfood here. And you then see who has the most health at the end of 3 rounds like that. So you deal out all the cards, and then in between, you take away health like this. So everybody starts out with 500, and say this is what they end up with. So they end up losing 100 health. Love these little tokens here. So they lose 100 health. Then we shuffle up, we deal out our hands again based on how many players are playing, and we just keep going round and round until the end, and we see who comes out on top. Now that we've talked a little bit about gameplay, like I said, it's pretty simplistic, but I do want to go into a little bit more in depth about the different types of cards. So these are the deadly dessert cards. They are the ones that are the bad things and that you want to get them into other people's deck. You can see they run from 1 all the way up to 15. That is the same for every suit. All of the different color cards all run from 1 to 15. So you will be told in the rule book, based on the number of players that you're playing with, which cards to remove. So like in the case of a 3-player game like we were just showing before, you would actually take out cards 1 through 6 of every suit. So you would start off with Deadly Dessert of 7. These are all upside down. But that would be the starting point for all of your games there. Then let's move on from Deadly Desserts. We've briefly gone over like the regular cards. They just have cute pictures. This is one of my favorites. Like, looks like it's Dumbledore and Voldemort fighting, and they have like pun names, but they're all different colors. You have red, blue, and green are the regular suits, and then purple is the Deadly Desserts. Moving on from there, you have the superfoods. The superfoods are the Hangry Pig, which is a -100. He's a big guy if he gets into your victory pile. Asparagus, who heals 100. So if you get both of those, it's actually not that bad because it can negate each other. And then you have the Double Agent Seltzer, which has 2 different effects based on what you have in your hand. So if you have, say, Asparagus in your hand or in your victory pile already, and then you collect the Seltzer, he will end up doubling, times 2ing, right here, the amount of negative stuff that you're going to get in the end. So obviously it's not going to hurt if you have just Asparagus in your deck. But say you have one of the really bad Deadly Dessert cards. Let's say you got this guy in there as well. So you got Asparagus, you got this guy, and then maybe let's throw in a couple other ones in there because they're going to potentially negate each other. So say here, this is your hand right here, your victory pile at the end. So you have 40, 30, and 50 coming off. So that would be 80, and that brings you to 120. You heal 100 of that. So it means you're only losing 20, but then you had this guy in there, and that doubles it. So now you're dealing 40 damage to yourself at the end of that round. If you just have this guy in your victory pile with whatever other Deadly Desserts and regular cards, he now actually heals for 50. So in this case, you'd be losing 120, but he actually takes 50 off of that, so you're only losing 70, which is really nice. So it's all about strategy on whether or not you want this guy in your deck, because sometimes you might not, sometimes you might, and sometimes the players will stick you with other cards. So in a situation, say like this, Hangry Pig and Double Agent Seltzer, that's 200 points coming off you right there because it's doubling that Hangry Pig. Definitely don't want that combination in there. The last set of cards that are a little bit special are the Gourmet Cards. These are double-sided, so you can swap this out for the Seltzer, the Dragon, that's the 50, the one who shares similar artwork, so the Frozen Dragon, you can swap him out for this one, and if you want. You can swap out the Shadow Swine for the Hangry Pig, and you can swap out Asparagus and Banana for the Asparagus card, and you can swap out Bubs the Bionic Bamboozler for the Double Agent Seltzer card. Now, what makes these different? The thing that makes these different is that they are 2-sided. So you can see what they are when you're holding them in your hand. Now, the thing that makes them different from normal cards is if somebody plays a green trick out, a craving that's green, you can't play this card on your first go around. So if somebody played that green, you wouldn't be able to play Asparagus. But say somebody played this guy, first hand of the game, first play of the game, you look at your hand, and you probably wouldn't have all of these in your hand, but say you have these, you are not able to play the Asparagus on your first trick. But once the second green card comes out, that guy comes out later on, then you're able to play Asparagus and Banana Boy. But it's a little bit of extra strategy because all the other players can see that they're in your hand. And I kind of like that little extra layer of strategy that a lot of other trick-taking games wouldn't have. Now that you know how to play the game, little animated me is going to meet you back up top and is going to talk about what I think about the game. So what is there to say about this game? I really like this game. I know I lead off a lot of reviews like that. I am a pretty lenient scorer when it comes to my reviews, but this game is just pure fun. First, I'm going to talk about pros because that's the fun part. And I'm going to start off with one of my favorite things to talk about, and that is components. The first thing I'm going to point out about this game is the artwork. The artwork is amazing. I love the puns that all the cards have. It's really clever. I love the different types of pictures and how there's wizards and phoenixes and spiritual leaders and goddesses, and they're all made out of different types of food, and that is just amazing. I love it. Next in components, I really need to talk about the cards. The cards are really well made. They're a thick stock and they have some heft and weight to them. They have this sort of kind of texture to them where it's a little bit rough, and in some aspects that's a good thing, where the cards don't slide around on the table if you're playing on a mat or anything like that, or just a straight card table or something like that. But there is a little bit of a con that comes along with that, is I don't really like how the cards scratch against each other and make noise, like a grinding noise whenever you're playing with them in your hand. That's kind of annoying, and I'm somebody who plays with their cards a lot, so I'm hearing that noise a lot. Next, I got to talk about the health tokens. The health tokens are cool because they're little cinnamon buns and cookies and pancakes, and they're just adorable. But from a mechanical perspective, I just love the fact that when you open up the box, they're already in individual baggies. You do not have to punch them out of a cardboard sheet, which is normally really annoying, and there's always this kind of chance that you're going to rip the edges of the tokens or the pieces or whatever you're popping out of those. I hate just sitting down there and popping out those pieces for 20 minutes whenever I open up a brand new game, and this game doesn't give me that problem, so that's a plus in my book. Still somewhat about the physical components of the game. The box is very shelf friendly. It's a relatively thick box, but it's small. It doesn't take up a ton of space. And when you unload the game, it doesn't take up much space on your table. You can pretty much play it on a small table, just enough space for you to sit around the table with all of your friends. And that's all the space that you need. You don't need this big, ginormous table with a lot of games require nowadays. Last bit about the components, I promise. But the one thing I will talk about is the theme. The theme is not super thick into the game. I mean, it's obviously over all of the artwork and everything, but when it comes to actually tying in mechanically, there's not a ton there. I mean, any trick-taking game is probably going to have about the same level of theme penetration, but in this game, the only thing that really ties really heavily into the theme mechanically is the sugar rush, which ties into the whole deadly desserts theme, and sweets are bad and they equal negative points. Now let's get a little bit into the gameplay, some of the pros about that. It is really easy to explain, and because it's really easy to explain, it makes a great game for all ages. Combining that with the family-friendly theming, and it makes the perfect game that you can pull out in pretty much any company. The games are quick and simple, with a lot of those moments where you play just the right card and everybody reacts. The games usually last about 20 minutes. If you're playing with 2 or 3 people, sometimes the games can be even shorter than that. I sat down with my girlfriend and my son the other day, and we were just going to play one game, and it ended up turning into 3 because my son wanted to keep playing. I think going forward, this game is going to be one of those games that I bust out fairly often because it's got really easy setup and really easy cleanup. Speaking of the people you're playing with, you can actually play with 10 people in this game, and it scales well no matter how many people are playing. That is a rarity. Not only that it plays with 10 people, but it doesn't feel like you're stretching the mechanics of the game to accommodate that many people. Well, you knew this was coming. I gotta talk about the cons, but it's me, so there's probably not a ton of them. I'll start off with some simple ones. One I mentioned earlier, the fact that the cards scratch against each other really bothers me, and I don't like the rulebook design. It has this fold out map kind of design, and I hate that. Just give me a normal book, guys. One that flips through, has regular pages. I don't want to have to be folding things out and trying to press it flat on the table in order for me to read the rules. One thing that's a little bit more of a bummer is the fact that with the way that the scoring works here, is you can easily knock somebody down to a small number of tokens really early on, maybe in the first round or so, and it's kind of hard to bounce back from it, at least in smaller number player games. It's less of a problem when you're playing with more people because the games are more chaotic and they're just a lot of fun and high energy when you're playing with that many people, but when you're in a one-on-one or a 3-way game, it's kind of a bummer to get knocked down to 120 tokens in the first round and then everybody else is probably not going to get there. It's possible, but probably not. That leads a little bit into the strategy of the game in general, and more specifically the sugar rush mechanic. That is sort of a Hail Mary sort of play, and there are certain strategies geared around it. In some of the games that I've played, there's like this moment where you have a choice. If you've gotten hit with some of the deadly desserts or a fair amount of them, maybe you just lean into it. Try to get the rest of the deadly desserts and try and kick into sugar rush, and that could be something that can really win the game for you, but that's also a little bit of a risk, because if you lean into it and try to get all the deadly desserts and you don't get all of them, but you get most of them, you're probably going to lose that round and possibly the whole game. That's where most of the strategy lies, in when you play the deadly desserts card, whether you lean into trying to get a sugar rush, how you play the different superfood cards. There is some strategy, but it's definitely very luck based, and the more players you play with, the more chaotic and luck based it kind of is. With smaller numbers of players, you don't have a lot of the cards in any of your hands. So if you're playing with 2 or 3 players, there's a lot of cards that aren't going to be played. You don't really know what's not in anybody's hand, so it's kind of hard to strategize. All you can really control is when you play specific cards, how you get rid of certain suits in what amount of time. As you get into more players, you're using 2 decks, but a lot of the cards are out, so it's a little bit easier to know what everybody has, but you don't know who has it and what combinations they have it in, so it's very chaotic, but that can also be a lot of fun. It depends who's playing. If you're looking for a strategy heavy game, this is probably not the game for you, but I like strategy based games and I like a fun card game every once in a while. To be honest, even though I like strategy games a lot, I tend to play these kinds of card games more often because they're simpler, they're quicker, they're easier to bust out in mixed company. You don't have to explain a bunch of rules. And this game definitely ticks a lot of the boxes of what I want in a simple, quick, fun card game. 7 out of 10. If you want to pick up your copy of this game, we'll link it down below in the description. The game that I was playing in the Let's Plays and in the review portion where I explained the mechanics was actually the Kickstarter edition. This is a brand new game. Their Kickstarter edition came with some stickers and it was awesome. People got to name some cards. It was a great Kickstarter. I highly recommend you go try and pick up a copy of this game. If you like what you're seeing on the channel, hit that thumbs up button. Leave a comment down below. What's your favorite card game? Let me know. And do you know a game that's got a more adorable theme than this one? Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you know what's up and you don't miss any of these game reviews in the future. And remember, you're all kings and queens. I'm just the entertainment. Bye guys.